Hey everybody, it's John Wheatcroft here with the Sunday Q&A, my Sunday Q&A. We're up to week 20 and I'd just like to thank everyone for sending me some really great suggestions. I've had some great questions through this week as well as some really supportive comments. It's really appreciated, so thanks very much for that, for everyone that's reached out and got in touch. We've got some good topics this week, so as we've been doing in recent months, I'll start with a piece. So this is my arrangement of the Django and Stefan standard Daphne, but it owes more than a little bit of a nod to a certain Mr. Benson. There's an absolutely phenomenal trumpet solo on this piece by a just wonderful player, Martin Shaw. If you've not checked Martin out, then you're in for a treat. He's very special. And it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, first take. I think he heard the track once and then laid down this absolutely amazing solo. So before I play that track, I wanted to mention just a little bit about how your suggestions can really make a difference to me, and I'm hoping that we can all help each other out. An Italian student of mine who I'm hoping we became friends, made a great suggestion many months, maybe even a couple of years ago, about a book that he was reading called The Pressure Principle, written by Dr. I think he's a PhD, Dr. Dave Alred, whose his background's not in music, it's in sport. He's trained many sort of world-ranking number one golfers. He's quite renowned, I think, in rugby. I think he trained the Johnny Wilkinson and people like that, when we were winning all those trophies. So he knows a thing or two about performing when stress is involved. And so I've been reading that this very day, and that's going to inspire this next performance. The particular chapter I'm reading at the moment, which I'm rereading this book, I've read it a couple of times now, talks about like what he calls it something like match conditions, which is essentially like the one-shot philosophy. So the difference between a recording situation, of course, and sometimes a practice situation, is you can have many attempts at playing something, and each attempt we sort of refine our gaze and our aim becomes more accurate as we're making little adjustments based upon every single kind of miss-hit, if you like. So every time we attempt to play something we don't get it quite right, then we adjust it slightly and we make some little changes here and there, and a little change can go a long way, and then eventually that we can do it to the standard that we wish. Now, of course, that's all great and it's all well and good, but when we perform live, or when you're in a situation where you're like maybe recording something live or you're broadcasting something live, you don't get all of those, like maybe even hundreds of attempts to refine. You've got to really be able to perform when it counts, and that means being able to do it with one shot. So he suggests things like, in your practicing, leave lots of breaks. So if you're practicing to do a particular thing, performance thing, say you want to play a particular lick or passage or what have you, right? It's one thing if you can get it right after the 5th or 6th attempt, and then you convince yourself that you can play it, but then you come back to it the next day. If it takes you 5 or 6 attempts, or maybe even 3 or 4, then that's still too many. Because in a performance situation, you don't get that run up to it, you don't get the preparation. So with this in mind, I'm going to kind of put my money where my mouth is, and I hope of course, I could take hundreds of attempts at doing this, but unfortunately I've got no time at the moment. Things are really hotting up. So one of the problems that I found with recording these Sunday Q&As is, because you can take 10 takes at a tune, there's a tendency to keep that in the back of your mind and think, okay, well, if I don't get it right, I can do it again, and then suddenly it does take 10 takes. Whereas what I'm about to do now is, what you're going to hear is how this sounds, first take, mistakes and all. It is going to be what it's going to be, and this subscribes to Dave Alred's you need to get prepared to be able to do stuff in what he calls match-like conditions. So I'm going to give it my best shot. I hope you enjoy it. So this is my arrangement of Daphne by Django Reinhardt, but with quite a different feel. There's some amazing musicians on this album, Bosco de Oliveira plays percussion on this track. It's phenomenal what he does, what he adds to it. Really, really good. Andy McKenzie on rhythm guitar, James Oscroft on the drums. Yeah, that's it. And it's such a really, really a pleasure to play with those musicians. Simon Thorpe on bass as well. I can't forget Simon. He plays amazingly on it. But the solo on this is Martin Shaw. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the week. Week 20, yeah, great. It's a real milestone. Yeah, enjoy the tune, and I'll see you afterwards where we'll get stuck into the topics. I hope you enjoyed that performance. Yeah, I can promise you that that was the first take. There's a certain charm and a spontaneity that you get, which is very difficult to fake when you just go for the first, the things that your instincts are telling you to play in the moment. Now the question is, how do you work on these kind of things? One way that I work on the idea of being able to be in the moment, or also more importantly, to give myself possibly more of an accurate indication as to how far I've absorbed a particular idea, is to come back at stuff frequently. Little and often is definitely the mantra. So whereas if you practice something for an hour and at the end of the hour you're getting it right, that's not really an indication to me that I've got it down, because as I said before, playing that tune, each and every time you take aim, as it were, and you're kind of a little wide of the mark, then you're making these subtle adjustments, little modifications in your posture, the way that you play something, even down to the way you memorize something. Your brain is processing the information. So what you get at the end is the culmination in essentially all of these attempts rolled into one. Whereas in a performance scenario, you need to be able to do the things that you need to be able to do pretty much there and then. So a good way to check this is to come back to a particular thing naturally once you're warmed up. So you can be doing something else, which means that you're physically, you're not going to be cold. You're not coming at it where you're carrying tension and so on. You can be relaxed and you can be loose, how you feel after you've been playing for a while. But come back to each idea fresh. So with that in mind, something that you can do is when you're practicing is you can cycle the ideas that you're working on, rather like a circuit training in the gym or something like that. So say you're working on 4 different things on a particular practice session. There's no reason why it needs to be thing 1, stop, thing 2, stop, thing 3, thing 4. You can go thing 1 for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go to thing 2, go to thing 3, to thing 4, back to thing 1 again, whatever it is, idea number 1, go to number 2, then back to number 1, and kind of keep jumping about, because then each time that you come back to the idea, it's almost like it's the first time again, like it would be if you were playing it in a set. So if you've got a particular musical idea, lick or technique or what have you, you've got to not only practice being able to do that technique, you've got to practice getting to that technique from whatever it is that happens before on whatever that happens afterwards. You could even do that as an idea. It's one of the things about learning licks, is when you play licks, they're often fine and players can play them, but then they struggle to get them into the act, as it were. And that's because you've got to consider what you play beforehand and what you play afterwards. So you've got to practice getting into the idea and then practice getting out of the idea. So rather than it being like a set piece, so to speak, you've got to find a way to sort of naturally work your way into whatever the particular thing is you're working on, and then find your way out of it again as well. So I'm hoping that some of these thoughts might be helpful, and it might just inspire the way you practice. But definitely that thing of coming back at something. Usually for me, an indication is if I can pick the guitar up, just pick it up. Not from cold, of course, because you want to make certain that you don't do yourself an injury. But, if I've been playing something else, or, I'm kind of warmed up, maybe even another instrument, I've been playing a lot of this thing behind me. And I can just pick it up and play whatever it is that I'm aiming to execute, then that's usually a good indication that I'm on the road to getting something down. If it can just come out and happen automatically, then it's there. If it takes 3, 4, or even 2 attempts to get it right, then 2 attempts is one too many. You need to be able to do it first time, and that's where confidence comes from. If I knew that it may take me up to 2 or 3 attempts, then I've got a kind of over 50% chance of getting something wrong, and I'm going to enter it. I'm going to enter that idea with trepidation, thinking, oh, I hope I don't make a mistake here. Whereas if okay, well, I can pretty much just do this, right? Then you're going to come into it with a bit more confidence. And confidence, for the most part, confidence and the psychological approach to performance is more important than the physical, I think. Imagine the nerve that it takes to take a penalty in the World Cup final when the eyes of the world are upon you, and if you miss, then you're going to be all over the tabloid newspapers the next day. But if you score, you're going to be a national hero. Well, that's not to do with how well you can kick the ball. That's to do with how well you can handle the nerves. And that's the same thing, with performance. And each performance setting has its own kind of, it's got its own trials and tribulations. So you might think performing in front of a large audience is the traumatizing one. For me, that's absolutely not the case. I find it much more difficult to play to a camera when it's just me than I do if you put a big audience in front, because you feel the energy, and they're not there. Not the camera's there for that reason, but the audience are not there to pick holes. They're there to support, and you can channel that, and that kind of the slight bit of nerves can be used to feed your adrenaline a little bit. So managing adrenaline is also a part of this, so not getting so excited that you run away with yourself, and your ideas end up not being composed, not in the pre-written, but composed as in the controlled way. So we want a little bit of adrenaline flowing. We want to be excited, but we don't want to be completely sort of overtaken by that, so that what we play is not within our control. So that would be the first thing for today, really, just a maybe more of a philosophical thing about thinking about ways how you can get to that first time, one shot, as Dave Aldred says, match condition type of performance. And if you get that into your practice, if you put that into your practice, it will come out in your performance. So that's our thing number 1. It's a great book. I cannot suggest it strongly enough. Let's get stuck into the suggestions and questions this week. So I had a request from Justin to talk about incorporating 4th intervals into one's playing. How might you do that? You've noticed in some of the pieces that there's some 4th action in there. I've mentioned Joe DiOrio many times, and probably will continue to do so. He's amazing, and a lot of my intervallic ideas come from Joe. But this playing the scale in 4ths, or 5ths, or 6ths, or 7ths, or what have you, is a real common device. I mean, I've been working through this book, this Ray Brown bass method book has been part of my practice of late. And the first few chapters, when you look through it, it starts with some scale positions. So you've got scales to begin with. And as you go through, the next thing after scales is a page of third exercises. So we have scales, and then we have, I don't know if you can see that, we've got thirds. Maybe you can or can't see that, it's glaring a bit, doesn't matter. Yeah, so thirds there, maybe it's coming into focus. And then the next page, as you might imagine, after thirds, what comes next? Fourths. So that's taking a scale and breaking it into all the component intervals. So everything we're going to do today is going to be based, for this part, is based around D Dorian, D minor. We may move into D melodic minor as we progress, but we're certainly going to start around D minor. So I have a backing loop which I'll play for you, which is just D Dorian or D minor. So the scale, our host scale is D minor with a natural sixth. Okay. Or C major scale, but seen from the perspective of D. So whichever way that you envisage that in your mind, it'll all come up with the same answer. Okay, so first off we'll do the diatonic fourth. So I'm going to play that scale along one string. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And the diatonic fourths are all the next string down at the same fret with one exception. They're all perfect with one exception, and that is the fourth that you find from the note of F. So from D, it's a perfect fourth. From E, it's another perfect fourth. From F, it's a raised four. Because if I play perfect fourth, I get B flat, which is dissonance. G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, so that raised four from F and F alone. Everything else is perfect. So I can put that into a scale fingering. Now there's a slight advantage here to 3-note per string fingerings, in that the fourth will now be on a consecutive adjacent string. So say I choose this 3-note per string finger, and of course there's 7 of them from each of the 7 degrees. But say I choose this one. It means I have one note on each adjacent string. So in this case the fourths are going up. Whereas if you use the kind of imposition fingerings like so, you're going to deal with some string skips like here. Now. And that's not insurmountable. See, there's a string skip there between the D string and the E string. Or if you play with this finger, adjacent, adjacent, until here, at this point now, where it's 3-note per string, you don't have that to deal with. Okay, so 3 particular patterns. Let me just check tuning if you don't mind. Okay. So 3 patterns. One would be ascending fourths. Now I can ascend fourths but descend the scale. Still thing number 1. Then I can descend fourths but ascend the scale. Choose whichever fingering you wish. And descend the scale. idea of playing the first note and then the next note and then the first note again, like. Making a 3-note pattern. That's one kind of a little cliche that I use. Then of course we can ascend 1/4 and descend the next. So that'd be this. Of course that doesn't need to be so regular, it could be up, 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 down, 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 up, up, down, up, 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 down, up, 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 down, up. Jumping around. Okay. Then we can start stacking 4ths on top of 4ths. In fact, I think I played a line in the previous tune, like a different tonality of course, where I went. I just played 4ths on top of 4ths, so we can do 3. Kind of stacking 4ths. In fact, I played this. I can remember playing something like this in Daphne, which is 4/4 in this instance. Stacking on top of one another. So something you can do as a practice thing with this is do them in ones, 1/4. And when you're comfortable with that, put another level on. And that whole thing of going up 1, down 1, the same patterns apply. Then you can do 4. Then at this stage, we're getting into kind of the idea of quartal chords, really. Together. So, okay. So that's our first thing, is stacking them up within the scale. Okay. So thing number 1. So thing number 2 with 4ths is to take the pentatonic scale. And what I can do with this is I can stack 4ths beneath to harmonise. So you can do certainly 1/4. Okay. Or 2. Physically above, but musically below. Okay, now you can stack another 4th below for all but 1. That's okay. This one's okay. Now it depends how brave you are. You could do this. There. So that's okay. So this one's okay. This one's okay. This one's okay. That's the major third. It's an F sharp. So you might want to go. So in that instance, from the D it's okay, the F's okay, the G's okay, the A, I'm not so sure if you play perfect 4th. And that's because, so from the A, we need an F natural, not an F sharp. You could do it, I guess. Okay, so idea of just having 3 notes. Okay. So what I'm going to suggest we can do now, we can take this sort of McCoy-Tyner chromatic inside-outside idea, and from any of these shapes, I can move the 4th stack below, leaving the note on top where it is, but I can move this up or down by semitones to create tension and release. So again. So I'll do everyone below. Everyone above. Sense? Okay. Okay, so there's our first 2 things with 4ths. It's a really good idea to have some set vocabulary when learning a new sound. It's one of the best ways to introduce a concept into your playing quickly. So here's a Robin Ford lick that comes from the minor pentatonic scale based on 4ths. Play it slowly for you. Swinging the rhythm a little, okay? So slowly. 4 consecutive 4ths, 3 consecutive 4ths. So it's A, D, G, C, A, D, G, F. Now this can be played in D, or E, or A. Because the minor pentatonic scale of D and E and A is found within D Dorian, so I can juxtapose E, A. So any of those 3 sounds can be played against this tonality. So what we're looking for here is these kind of almost like wall-like shapes. So that's pentatonic, but it's not pentatonic as you might know it. 2 notes per string. I'm just taking, in this case, all of the notes that will be played with the first finger, or as Robin does, all of it's all of the higher notes, not in this case the index finger notes. Or you can see this being the lowest notes in this form. So it's good to see the pentatonic scale as a series of lines that move across the fretboard. And that's where these lines are coming from, these like almost like broken chord type ideas from pentatonic. So that's idea number 3. Our 4th and final idea is a little bit more outside in that it involves all 12 keys. So one of the beauties of 4ths is if you go around diatonic 4ths, then of course you stay within 1 key, but if you go around perfect 4ths, you're going to go through all 12 keys. So in a pattern of 5, this is where the cage system comes from. So meaning if I were to go from D, we would have D, G, C, F, B flat. Then I move up a fret and you get the next 5 keys: E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D. That's a tone row. Okay. Almost that's kind of interesting. But these things start to sound really cool is if you play a short musical phrase from each. So say I'll play something really inside this. I can now transpose that through all 12 keys by going. That was just a different phrase when from D, then from G, and then from C, and then from F, and then from B flat, and then from E flat, and then A flat, and then from D flat, and then F sharp, B, then E, then A. So you've got to kind of have the courage of your convictions with those type of phrases. You just got to keep going, keep hanging on, you'll come out the right side. Of course, you can play little fragments of these. You don't necessarily have to go around all 12 when playing against one chord. You can start earlier on into the, or later in of the cycle of 12 so that you come out of D minor, or you can pull the escape, pull the ejector seat at any point in the midst of a cyclic idea like that, and then decide to go back to tonality. So I could go from D minor, then I could go to G minor, and then go to C minor, but then when I get to F I can make it F major, and then that puts me back into D minor tonality again. So just to recap, here's the cycle of fourths: D, G, C, F, B flat, B flat, A flat, D flat, G flat or F sharp, B, E, A, D. So it's this 5-note pattern recurring up the fretboard. And in fact, these things could be seen as the root notes of your chords, and that's the basis of the cage system. If you play scales from them, that's how you get to play in all 12 keys within one fret, because you have 5 keys here, 5 keys here, 5 keys there. That's all 12 plus some multiples, all within one fret. So fourths are very powerful, so I suggest you spend some time living with them. Hopefully that gives you some ideas as to how you can at least begin to incorporate some fourth action into your playing. I had a request from Will this week about a specific kind of intervallic pattern that he's noticed me using in many of the pieces, and it's based around the idea of string skipping 3-note per string scales. So 3-note per string scales, as the name suggests, again all in D Dorian, are 3 notes on every string. And you've got 7 different fingerings from each degree. One of the issues is if you start in one position, you'll end up in another. So if I start here at the 5th fret, there's a position shift, so I end up at the 7th fret. So that causes some players to play fingerings that double certain notes up. So in this case now I'm doubling up this E note. So we end up in the same position in which we began. Now what this does, it affords us the opportunity to string skip. So I can do things like, instead of playing all 6 strings, I'm just going to play string 5, nothing on string 4, so just string 3, nothing on string 2, and just string 1. So I've got D, E, F, C, D, E, A, B, C. Intervallic patterns, which I use a lot. The great American fusion guitar player Tim Miller is big on these things. He calls them 3x3 patterns. I think I got them initially from looking at strings with arpeggio shapes and then fleshing out the scale tones around. So coincidentally, it was the same patterns. But he's definitely worth checking out. He's fantastic. So here's what we have from D. Unfortunately for us, it's exactly the same pattern from this D. Finger is identical, exactly the same. Or, so making a 3 into a 2, and then this 2, like so. Okay. So anything I do from D can be transposed down or up. I did the consecutive 4th line from the previous idea, 3x3 line, two by 2, mapping these fingerings out and then getting some jumping patterns are what going to allow you to access some bigger, wider, and potentially more interesting intervals. Of course, mixed in with, you know, mix it up with everything else that you've got going on, whatever else you've got going on, it can all go in there. So I suggest what you do is you map these out. So I'll run them for you from the lowest one we can play, maybe B. I'm gonna have, so we played slow, I'm gonna have, that's that pattern. And from C, and from D, E string roots as well, the low E string roots. Same fingerings. F, then G, and one more, and we've hit them all. A, and we're back to where we started from. often have to be asked twice to talk about Django Reinhardt. So I was really pleased when Alfie sent me a message saying, could you play some Django licks? Could you break some Django licks down for us? So I've decided to do this over the next 3 weeks. I've got 10 transcribed Django licks that I wanted to show you. So today we're going to look at licks 1, 2 and 3. There are transcriptions available. So if you're interested and you'd like me to send you a PDF of the transcriptions here, that's not a problem at all. Just go to my website, contact me on my website, which is johnwheatcroftguitar.com. There's a contact form. Just send me a request, send me your email address, and I will stick it through the virtual mail, as it were, stick it in the post as well. So on we go. So here's 10 classic Django licks. I'm going to play them really slow, really super simple. So this is just like an introduction to Django style. So the first one is based around the key of C, and it's around the G7, going to a C, and it slowly goes 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So this is a classic example of 2 fingers in motion as well. So Django, what he's doing here, over the G, is spelling out this chord. Like a G6. So going from the 9 of the G to the root, 6, 3rd, root, chromatically down to the 7, then up a dominant 7th arpeggio, but with a 6, which is something you're going to hear a lot in Django style, the 6th degree, although in this case the high 6, so we got. So it could be a 2-5-1 even, 2, G, C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 1. So here's phrase number 2. Give it that one more slowly again. One more time. So this phrase is a 2-5-1 or 5-1, depending upon how we perceive this chord. B minor 6 to E9, they're kind of the same chord, to A, or A6 in this case. And our phrase is based around this arpeggio. Which is a B minor 6th arpeggio. With a little bit of chromaticism here. The start. Decoration. Then what we do, we decorate an A arpeggio. There's an A arpeggio with the notes above. In total. Super slow. Lick number 2. So here's Django lick number 3, the 3rd and final one for this week. Okay, so it's mixing chords with single notes. Okay, So this is like an E, like a 2 as a dominant chord, and then the arpeggio. So it's like an E9. So it's a 2 chord as a dominant. Then to an A7 sharp 5, which is the 5. Now whole tone scale. So Django like these like whole tone type fingerings that mixed 2 different directions. So a whole tone could go diagonally away from the guitar like so. Of course with Django, it'd be these 2 fingers. But it could also go diagonally in the opposite direction. So one of the ways to sort of stay in the same position is to zigzag. You could go. So go opposite ways, go down, up. Like Rhythm Future and things like that, you know, those kind of shapes. That's a kind of famous Django tune called Rhythm Future where he uses that pattern. So he uses it here. So we have an E9. Boom, 2, 3. A. And then we'll be in the key of D. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that short little glimpse into Django's world. There'll be another 3 Django licks next week. Yeah, check him out. He's amazing. You know, I'm sure if you got this far, you probably, if you like the same things I like, then it's almost certain that you will have listened to Django. But on the rare off chance that you've not checked him out, you know, you will not be disappointed. He's absolutely awesome. So I hope you enjoyed that. As always, I hope you got something useful from this week. Please keep the questions coming. Yeah, always really, really great ideas, great topics coming from you. So please keep that coming. Thanks once again for all the kind comments that have been sent through. Yeah, we're coming of age next week, key in the door, 21. So I'll have another tune for you to hear. I'm not entirely sure what it will be, but that's part of the beauty of this. It keeps me on top of repertoire and things like that, keeps me practicing, makes certain that I'm on top of my skills as well as hopefully helping you to do the same. As always, comments are greatly appreciated. Likes and shares are really helpful. If you can find or think of any way to help spread the word, that would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, I'd be most grateful for that because, you know, like all of these things, I can't do this by myself. The more people that know about it, then hopefully the longer it can continue. The intention is to continue this through lockdown. Even though things are getting quite busy for me at the moment, but that's a really good thing. In fact, if anything, it gives me more ideas of things that I can include in these Sunday sessions. So I hope you have a really great day. I hope you have a good week, and keep your suggestions coming. Even if it's not necessarily even a question, it could just be, this might be a useful topic. This might be something that I think that we could all benefit from. I am also going to take that idea live over the next few weeks of having some guest contributions, some great players lined up as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It's just a question of just making it happen now. Everyone is beginning to, it seems like players are starting to get a bit busy again, and they're all in demand. So I have to work at the sort of at the mercy of when they're available to do stuff and what have you. But that would be really great when that comes off. I think that would be a really great addition, and again, hopefully it will help to spread the word. So have a great rest of your Sunday. If you're watching this later on, have a great week. Thanks once again. Keep practicing, and I will see you next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.